Content is the name of the game for e-com companies, and to have a constant, steady flow of it is truly invaluable because it allows you to just be so much more agile with that testing. We've gone as granular as, is spoken testimonial better, or should we be watching a TikTok reel type of video with music behind it? Does the hook, this is why I now like ironing, or meet the internet's favorite iron, have a higher conversion rate? There is a real science behind content optimization, and Pilothouse does an incredible job of that. Since we have done spoken testimonials alongside a mashup of the Nori press in use, we have seen our CPAs almost halved, and it's allowed us to run at almost double the run rate.
Hey everyone, it's Eric, and before we get started with this very special episode of a Friday all killer no filler with Courtney Toll from Nori, this super interesting iron product that's sort of taking the fashion world by storm, as well as with Angela, the team lead at Pilothouse for the UGC department, and we're excited to dive into that. But what I'm really excited about is to tell you about D2C's first live event happening on May 12th in Vancouver in Railtown. You may not know this about me, but I come from an event producing background. I've sort of put on almost a dozen high-quality international marketing training events all around the world, but we're kicking it back off in Vancouver on May 12th with a free real live meetup where we're going to do a live podcast with some of Vancouver's fastest growing brands, a little Q&A with the audience, followed by some drinks, some food, and a whole lot of networking with the West Coast best marketers, brands, and entrepreneurs. I want to invite you as a D2C listener to come join us. You can go to learn.directtoconsumer.co/events right now and reserve your spot in Vancouver to come meet the D2C team, meet the Pilothouse team, and rub elbows with the West's best marketers. I really hope you can make it. If you can't, we'll be doing events in the future, maybe in your neck of the woods. You can email me at eric@directtoconsumer.co and tell me where you think we should go next. But until then, I hope to see you there, and I hope you enjoy this podcast. It was a great one. On with the show. Hey retailers, ever feel like your shopper experience feels just like everyone else's? Here's an idea. Put your shopper first with the only personalization platform that is purpose-built for retailers. Bluecore combines retail data and predictive intelligence to match online shoppers with the products they will buy next across channels like email, site, paid media, social, and SMS. Automate and scale your personalized content offers and recommendations for each shopper in a one-on-one individualized experience. Visit Bluecore.com to see why brands like Noble, Express, and Bliss have gone shopper first to drive repeat purchases and increase customer lifetime value. Hello and welcome to All Killer No Filler. It is Friday for the first time in a long time on this show. And today I am here with Courtney from Nori as well as Angela from the UGC Pilothouse team. Courtney, let's start with Nori. Can you give me the why of why you built Nori?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm super excited, especially to be joined by Angela as well. We've had an incredible experience working with Pilothouse, so excited to dive into that a bit deeper. But absolutely, Nori has been the most incredible adventure, honestly, for the last 11 months since our launch. But always interesting to kind of just start with the origin story, or like the why, as you said. Basically, I was a young professional. I had just started a career somewhat in consulting, and I was really eager to make that strong first impression. So I was living in this tiny, cramped New York apartment, and I'd wake up in the morning with a wrinkled garment or wrinkled blouse, and I didn't have the space in my apartment for an ironing board. I didn't have the time to deal with this inefficient and leaky steamer my mom had gotten me from Bed Bath & Beyond, and I definitely couldn't afford repeat dry cleaning. So I would actually iron my clothes with a hair straightener, funny enough. And I then headed back to school where I allowed kind of my minor to serve as this opportunity to really dive into the ironing and steaming market. So we sat down with 500 plus individuals, primarily females, Gen Z and millennial, and we just heard the same narratives time and time again, that there was no attachment to existing brands in the space. The point of sale was happening in these big box retailers, and this kind of put a spotlight on a market, that is ironing and steaming, that had seen little to no innovation since the introduction of the steamer in the 1980s. So that was enough rationale to kind of lead us on this 2+ year product development journey, in which we did everything from fundraising to product development to building out a marketing stack and all of that fun stuff to eventually launch in the end of May 2021.
And how did it go? Like I always love talking with people who have sort of done so much on the product end. It's crazy. It was a 2-year process, but I guess something like this just didn't exist in the market. That like I'd love to just hear a little bit about actually making the product.
Totally. Honestly, I would start by saying ignorance is bliss. I had no idea what I was kind of walking into when I set out to create a hardware product. My dad was actually an engineer, so knew a little bit about product development. But really, I think what's so cool about Nori is that this was totally inspired by a consumer pain point. So I was going to these product development firms speaking from kind of this personal frustration that I think eventually inspired their motivation for creating such a product. But really what happened was I remained in my job post-grad, and I was raising a little bit of money on the side, but I also started to recruit product development experts. And I knew that I wanted a real expert in irons and steamers. So I interviewed 19 design firms, got proposals from a majority of those, and ended up with a group that had worked with the Conairs and Remingtons and Cuisinarts of the world that knew steaming and MCH heaters like the back of their hand, and ended up creating an incredible iron that has been totally inspired by consumer insight.
That's so cool. We always say who, not how on the podcast. And for you to go through 19 different firms to find the one that actually, wouldn't be winging it as much as maybe some of the other ones. I guess everyone's pitching for the business, but to find the ones that have actually built products like this has probably saved you a lot of time and headaches.
Absolutely. And it's this incredible collaborative effort, right? So I would come in and say, I want 14-inch long arms that are going to reach across a garment in 6 fabric-specific heat settings and an optional use of steam. And they'd say, whoa, 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 this is the form factor that we're working within. This is what can fit in this part of the iron. This is what we're going to have to move to kind of the pump section. And I think what resulted was this really innovative product that is totally new to this market.
And I just even to dig back, you mentioned you spoke to, like, you did a lot of workshopping. And I think that's something we almost never talk about on the podcast in that product development phase. You said you talked to over like 500 sort of like women and people in the space that have issues with ironing to get a lot of feedback.
Exactly. So I had the freedom of kind of operating in a university environment. So you have a little bit more time, So my co-founder and I sat down with countless individuals. And like I said, primarily women. Women make 86% of consumer decisions, and specifically within the ironing and steaming market, that's a little bit of a higher percentage. But what was interesting is that we didn't find people that were specifically saying, I hate my iron, I hate my steamer. We just sat down to try and validate, is this a consumer pain point that other people are feeling? And it was this really organic conversation around just this mass amount of frustration with a category that is, launching products that you should be interacting with on, a weekly or even daily basis. So when I thought about all of the markets out there, everything from mattresses to toothbrushes to bidets, there's normally an innovative player, whether that be in technology or D2C distribution, and this just really lacked that player. So like I said, enough rationale to move forward from these conversations.
Very cool. So you put this work into the product. You have a strong sense that the market is ready for it. I think it's crazy to think of how little innovation has happened in that space since I Love Lucy, back in the 20s or whatever.
Exactly.
So when you brought it to market, what was the initial reaction? How did it work right away? Were people just like, yes, I'm ready for this right away because of all the legwork you'd put in?
Well, luckily, hardware has a long lead time. And I say luckily because I think we needed that time to really pull together a fully built out marketing stack that would support our launch. And I remember sitting down with one of our investors, and he said, what is it that you're trying to build? And I said, well, I'm trying to build this clothing care brand for the next generation. And we're going to launch with this consumer-inspired iron as our premier hero product. And he said, totally wrong. You're launching a marketing company that just so happens to be selling irons. And honestly, it was the best feedback he could have given me because it forced us to dive headfirst into the world of e-com performance marketing, everything from paid search and social and PR and email marketing that, yes, to a certain extent, I think has allowed us to see ramp fairly quickly out of the gate.
I just want to dig in on that a little bit. So this idea that you're a marketing company, not an ironing company, and that just allowed you to focus in, like rather than sort of going to market with like, if I've built it, they will come kind of idea, versus getting really, your hands dirty on how exactly you were going to do an omni-channel launch. Like, what was the key difference that changed in your mind when you got that piece of advice?
Completely. Well, I was pretty confident that we had stumbled upon something that was going to meet a consumer need, just given the amount of customer research we had done. So I knew that we had a product that I thought would hit home, but we live in such a consumerist economy that there is so much content being fed to people day in and day out, and so many products that are being presented. So I think it's important to have a good product, but it can't just be a good product. You have to get in the mindset of your consumer, empathize with your customer. Where are they living? Where are they shopping? Who are they listening to inform those consumer decisions? And then build kind of a marketing stack to support the presentation of your amazing product. So for our brand specifically, we had kind of set out with this hypothesis that our target market was 24 to 36-year-old females that were primarily living in urban areas, kind of bound by those same logistical and space concerns that I outlined in my initial origin story. And so we thought about, what are they using as their rationale to make purchases? And that has inspired everything from the influencers that we partner with, to the retailers that we partner with, and to the content and testimonials that we have created.
Very cool. What would you say has been the biggest growth lever in 2022 so far?
So really interesting. I would say a few things. Really, press is been surprising for me, because I have heard the gamut on press. Some people say, it's logos to put on an investor deck and a website. Other people say that it builds brand credibility and it can be, a major game changer for your company. And I actually tend to lean more towards the latter perspective. We hired an incredible partner to manage our kind of press earned media efforts. And what's been really, really successful for us, and we've seen this continue through from 2021 to 2022, is to have these sort of features come out. And we've had features in Vogue and Forbes and Fast Company. And those you see, kind of minor lifts from organically, but to lean into press as a repurposing and retargeting sort of area of expertise. So we take a press article, we repurpose it in the context of kind of a static image. We make a paid advertisement around that. It leads you to a landing page with that press article, so further rationale for that consumer to potentially purchase this product. And we've seen CPAs drop dramatically. We've seen our revenue grow month over month. And it's really surprising how I think press can really rebound into something that is so much more than just that article kind of hitting the stands. And also, I think that press support has also led to outreach from nationwide wholesalers that I don't think would have known about us otherwise.
It's so you're definitely speaking our language of performance marketing. This idea of not just getting that press hit, but then building it into your funnel as a really great proof point, essentially, that you're actually driving via landing pages and stuff. This is something we preach on the podcast all the time, to really leverage the true power of press. That's really cool to hear. What else? What else has been a major growth lever?
So we did a partnership with a kind of influencer-backed brand called Something Navy. And what was really interesting, a major growth lesson for us in 2022 was in January, our Facebook ad account was actually taken down. And for a brand that's been growing month over month, largely in part due to paid acquisition, has seen sustainable customer acquisition costs, it was like taking our oxygen away, and we were just totally thrown for a loop. But I think it was the best experience because it forced us to kind of take a step back and say, we're so head in the data, we're so deep into paid acquisition. What's a more organic way to have a conversation with our customers, to drive people to our website and to our Instagram to interact with us in a more organic method? And a branded partnership, I really think, is a great way to do that. So in February of 2022, we launched this co-branded product with a lifestyle brand, like I said, called Something Navy. It was this navy nori, we called it Something Steamy, and they did an incredible job of taking their brand, which has incredible levels of engagement and featuring Nori in so many different aspects of their brand. So they would do, in-feed posts, they would be on a photo shoot and take just really organic content, steaming their clothes with our iron. They put it in their physical store in West Village in New York and allowed people to visit it, in real life. And that has brought an incredible amount of attention to the brand, a number of new visitors to our site and our kind of social media channels. And now that our Facebook ad account is back up and running, I think it's really, really supported our retargeting efforts.
Super smart partnership of just something that's fully additive to both brands, right? Like you're going to enjoy your something navy dress that much more if you can wear it more because you're ironing it easier. Was this your brainchild to like go find something navy? Did they reach out?
Well, this is actually a funny story. When we had spent about 20 months pre-launch leading up to Nori and product development and fundraising and all that good stuff. And right before launch, my co-founder and I sat down to kind of create this sort of manifestation journal of all the things that we had hoped would happen for Nori in kind of our first 5 years. As a brand. And number 7 on that list was that we would work with Something Navy and their Chief Creative Officer, Ariel Chernus, in some capacity. And funny enough, in October, about 7 months post-launch, they actually reached out to us about doing a partnership. And of course, we were, quickly obliging to jump headfirst, and they were an incredible partner. And one of the few brands that I think just has the most incredible organic engagement. They're just true cult following type of brand, and it's been really amazing to interact with that audience.
Just super cool here. I think the low key like best point of the podcast so far is this idea of writing down what you want to have occur. I think I think back to myself several years ago, Angela, even before we started iStack, the company that we worked on previous to this. I wrote down that I wanted to have a podcast. And I need to write down more things, I think I realized, because when you write them down, it really does help kind of bring them into your world. I want to get Ryan Reynolds on the podcast, so I've got to write that down. Would you agree, Courtney?
I would absolutely agree. Yeah, shoot for the stars on paper because no one sees it, but it holds you accountable in the back of your mind. And I do believe in manifestation, that perhaps you can write something into existence.
Yeah, it can't hurt.
Exactly.
So everyone listening today, I want when you hear this podcast, everyone, I want you to write down some of your goals, the brands that you'd like to work with most, for instance, and let's see what happens over the next several months. We all know how tough the past 12 months have been with supply chain and marketing costs rapidly rising. Ecom World is your secret weapon to help your brand get back on track and make this year your best year ever. Ecom World is hosting an online event that will arm you with the strategies you need to grow your D2C brand profitably. Meet experts like Kellen Fitzgerald, head of ecom at Glow Recipe, and Davey Fogarty, CEO of The Oodie, as well as 80 other ecom experts who are paving the way in D2C. Get their step-by-step strategies to optimize the growth of your ecom brand right now. D2C listeners receive 30% off the ticket price, so head over to ecomworldconference.com/DTC to get your ticket now. That's ecomworldconference.com/DTC. So let's bring Pilothouse, let's bring Angela into the conversation here. So obviously this is sort of like I would imagine Nori's like a dream brand when it comes to clients, when it comes to like the perfect product for creating UGC.
Oh yeah, like I love this brand. I've loved hearing the story again. It's a perfect product and a perfect brand for us because it's such an easy product demo to demonstrate in, just a few seconds. So that's easy to make content where people understand like in an instant. The product is visually appealing and it sort of applies itself to this greater goal of selling products, which is like, how does it make you feel? And it makes you feel good when your clothes look the best. Your clothes are your identity. People identify so much with their personal style. And this is just like elevating the wardrobe that you've invested in.
I love it. I love the tagline. So you have one less wrinkle to worry about, which is just speaks to your audience perfectly, I think. And that I bet that's been a powerful one.
It's been perfect. It's been the perfect match for like our Pilothouse creator network as well. Like we work with so many people who are demonstrating fashion brands and their personal style, and it's just been they've just been lining up to work with it. It's such an easy fit.
I was going to ask. I always wonder like what the hit rate is when you reach out for products with influencers. Like how many people write back, and actually how many end up delivering content. I imagine it's higher with a product like Nori.
Oh, absolutely. Like I would say this is close to. I would say the only obstacle is probably like people's schedule we're working around right now. Like people love the product. For us, yeah, it's an ideal client to work for.
It's just unique. It's visually unique as well, right? So when you are showing, I think that's the other great low key insight here is just that focusing on product demos, really focusing on people using it in their lives. That's been the most successful approach.
Definitely, like to see the ad of the content creator using the product and they understand the purpose, they understand the why, like in the first few seconds. That's been the main focus. Product demo, testimonial, and this idea of sort of like elevating your own personal style, having your clothes look the best, bringing it traveling with you. Like I can personally think of so many times trying to figure out a hotel iron. I personally never ironed with an ironing board too. Like I live in a condo. I'm the perfect demographic for this. I live in a condo. I've never had an ironing board. But I do remember my grandma having an ironing room. She just seemed to be like constantly working in. So yeah, it's just an ideal product for this, for our purpose of making UGC content for them. But I think also for like our generation that lives in condos, we can't have ironing boards.
Yeah, exactly. It's my worst ironing experience. I'm like, I don't always keep track of how long the water's been in there, and sometimes it goes like it like gets black. And I've actually ruined shirts before by having an old iron that isn't serviced properly. Just get crap on my shirt, and it ruined my day. So I better get a Nori, I think. Courtney, how has the UGC sort of Pilothouse relationship been from your perspective?
Yeah, I can't underscore the importance of UGC and performance creative, especially like Angela said, for such a demonstrative product. So from the get-go, we have done so much testing around what type of content converts, in addition to audience testing as well. But I just think that content is the name of the game for e-com companies, and to have a constant steady flow of it, which is the Pilothouse deliverable, is truly invaluable because it allows you to just be so much more agile with that testing. So we've gone as granular as, is spoken testimonial better, or should we be watching a TikTok reel type of video with music behind it? Or does the hook, this is why I now like ironing, or meet the internet's favorite iron, have a higher conversion rate? I mean, you can get so granular, and I think that there is a real science behind content optimization, and Pilothouse does an incredible job of that in working with you really collaboratively to say, okay, this is the content that we created. We've now put it into both creative and audience testing. These are the CPAs that we're seeing. These are the click-through rates. What can we try now, and what new narratives can we test out? And since we have done spoken testimonials alongside a mashup of the Nori press in use, we have seen our CPAs almost halved, and it's allowed us to run at almost double the run rate. So it's incredible. I mean, every D2C founder that I speak with is constantly trying to ramp up their content creation. And it's not only in a paid capacity, right? You now have TikTok, which is just the easiest way to reach customers, lower, CPCs than basically any other social media network. So it's much easier to interact with consumers. You just need the right amount of content.
Can you talk a little bit about what your content funnel looks like? I know you're a master of repurposing content, as we talked about on the press side. Can you talk a little bit about how you're using this UGC in the funnel? Is it mostly top of funnel?
Yeah, so basically we have Pilothouse and then a number of other freelancers that are constantly creating new narratives within their content month over month. So I will basically create a kind of document, for lack of a better word, that just walks through all of the narratives, all of the angles, all of the types of UGC reels that we want to create, and then share that with all of our various content creators to use within primarily Facebook and Instagram and TikTok ads, and then ideally also sharing them in a more organic fashion within our owned channels. Sometimes repurposing imagery within email marketing as well. But I would say that, like I said, the more content, the better. It's just figuring out, and we're still trying to figure this out. Like, what is the narrative that converts? Is it travel? Are people using this because they're now investing in, more statement items at a younger age? Like, what is the why here? And I think, like I said before, trying to be empathetic with your consumer and allow that to inspire whatever content you're creating alongside the data you're being fed is super important.
And I imagine leading with fashion is just super. Like, I think not everyone's passionate about ironing, but most people, or maybe most women are passionate about fashion. So leading with fashion, and then how this tool, like your partnership with Something Navy, how this tool sort of like unlocks your fashionability, right?
Absolutely. And I had this great conversation with this sort of D2C like guru the other day, and he was saying, it's so easy to just constantly cross-compare your CPAs and your click-through rates and, your media efficiency ratio, but just take a step back. I am in the target market, and what is it that convinced me to buy an away suitcase or a quick toothbrush? And really allowing like consumer insight to inspire those narratives that you test is super important. And even better really is just when we see someone organically speaking about the product on their Instagram channel, and then we reach out to them and ask for that content. I mean, that's best case scenario, right?
Very cool. What's the future look like for Nori? What are your goals with the brand?
Yeah, so we think about expansion kind of twofold. The first being continuing to build out our product base rather. So trying to become a really like full-fledged clothing care brand for the next generation. So we've started loosely with irons and liquid consumables, but this can be everything from sewing kits to hampers to new types of irons and steamers to more liquid consumables. Lint brushes, fabric shavers. It's a really interesting category because right now the way that it's segmented within the market is that you're buying, one product from Amazon, one product from Crate and Barrel, another from Container Store. There doesn't seem to be a brand that's really putting it all into one place in a really consumer-friendly, direct-to-consumer fashion. And so that's our goal in terms of investing in product moving forward. And then the second part is wholesale expansion and really just distribution and expansion at large. And we're doing this in a, really consumer-inspired way of, again, asking ourselves, are our consumers shopping at Bed Bath & Beyond, or are they shopping at Nordstrom and Williams-Sonoma and Something Navy? So trying to make sure that we have retail partnerships that still align with our same consumer base. And then also, hopefully, Angela, you kind of mentioned this, is expanding to hospitality as well. No one wants to pull out the ironing board and molded iron that is sitting in their hotel room that they paid a lot of money for. And so trying to get a Nori press or future products into hotel rooms is a massive potential channel.
I feel like it's kind of a product you weren't really thinking about needing it, but as soon as you see it, like you're like, oh, how do I not have that in my life so far?
Exactly.
Yeah. How have I been using this 1920s iron for this long? I need to ask because I think creative is the lever. There used to be when we were doing this 4 years ago. It's like we're talking about different bidding hacks and different campaign structures and retargeting things, but really it's always been creative, and now it's creative more than ever. When you're working with Pilothouse, you're working with other contractors. About how many creatives are you testing in a given time period? Let's say a week.
That's a great question. So we've actually worked with our agency to build out this really interesting testing structure where basically at any given time we probably have 10 or 12 creatives running across a few different audiences. But basically what we'll do is we'll create a new creative or a new ad set and we'll put it into what we call creative testing. So we kind of put it into broad audience testing and we give it typically around 5 days to just spend a bit of money and get some initial data behind it. If it shows initial promise, we then put it into a few of our more known higher performing audiences and put additional spend to it. So we're never putting kind of all of our eggs in a new creatives basket and seeing diminishing returns. So it's fairly iterative. I would say, I think right now, probably 10 to 12. We'll probably turn off maybe 3-ish a week and turn on some more. But luckily right now, with thanks to Pilothouse, we have some really high performing ads with sustainable customer acquisition costs and hopefully can continue to scale those.
Now, are those 10 or 12 unique creatives, or are those 5, 6 creatives with different overlays and different background musics? Are you sort of iterating on those, or are those 10 to 12 unique creatives?
It's a mix, probably. We definitely do sort of A/B testing where we do the exact same ad with either different hook or, like you said, different kind of background music or spoken testimonial. And that's how we validated a lot of those learnings that I mentioned before of what works for Nori. So I would say it's probably a mix of just totally different creatives and then kind of more like, back-to-back tests of which is converting, whether that be landing page, background music, or hook.
Nice. And then Angela, on the creative side, what are you cooking up for Mother's Day? Do we have a bunch of young mothers ironing in the creatives coming up soon?
Definitely. Like, I think the comparison of your mother versus your iron is interesting.
Ooh, not your mother's iron. I like it.
Yeah, not your mother's iron. But yeah, we're just focused on sort of like testing a bunch of different angles, coming up with like out of the box ideas. And our goal is always just to sort of narrow the focus based on the testing that we're doing to just get smarter and smarter about who works in the ads, what angles works, like what speaking points are the best. Down to like voiceovers, what voice resonates the best, what music works. Like, we're just trying to sort of continuously optimize to get smarter and smarter with what's working in ads.
Love it. And I don't normally ask this question on All Killer No Filler, but I have to ask Courtney, and I'm just springing it on. I didn't even tell I was going to ask you, so if you don't have a great answer, it's okay. But if we were to give you $50,000, we were to just be like, okay, here's a grant for $50,000. You don't have to pay it back, but you have to use it in the next 30 days. Where would you put that in the business right now to see the best results?
That is so interesting. And honestly, we just ran kind of a financial audit of all of our spend. So I'm going kind of granular here, but not to get too fancy, we're trying to start to bring on a debt to kind of cover some inventory financing because we do have relevantly stable cash flow. So all this is to say, I would probably put it largely into customer acquisition. And obviously that's runs the gamut of influencer partnerships, affiliate-backed PR, paid search and social. But I think at this point, just based on how it's been trending, I would say in the last 4 to 5 weeks, I probably would put it into paid acquisition or potentially towards another partnership that very much feeds that same paid acquisition channel.
Amazing. Nice. Well, this has been absolutely great. Angela, let's close here because I know you've recently, I think it's been a while now, about a month ago, you delivered your aspect of the Scale School course that D2C created in partnership with Pilothouse. So you have a unit in there that sort of like gathers all of your sort of insights on this UGC and influencer space into Scale School. Anything else to say about it?
Yeah, it'll give you sort of anyone who hasn't tested UGC at all, doesn't know how to like source this creative, to like maybe you've tested a couple different influencers and you want to see like just how do we improve this. It's sort of for like any level, any size of company. It'll give you like enough to get started sourcing this content.
I love it. So if you're listening, go to d2cnews.link/scale school and you can get the complete Facebook ad strategy that Pilothouse uses to scale, as well as Angela's UGC learnings. Courtney and Angela, thanks for coming on a Friday All Killer No Filler. This was a lot of fun.
This was really fun. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at direct-to-consumer, all one word.co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C Podcast. We'll see you next time.